SAPES Trust at their Policy Dialogue Forum, courtesy of Organizing for Zimbabwe Trust, OFOZ, in partnership with Community Alliance for Human Settlements in Zimbabwe. So, tonight we have got two distinct types of speakers. We've got the politicians from political parties. Then we also have the voices from civil society. So today's session is going to focus on the 2018 elections. And our key guiding question, or our key objective today, our scope of analysis or lens is, to what extent do political parties' manifestos resonate with the people's aspirations? So we're going to interrogate, and I think first we have presenters from political parties telling us in brief, and I hope they'll be able to articulate within 7 minutes what is within their manifestos. What are the key issues which they think these are relevant, and these are speak to issues to do with the people. These are the issues that people want to see being addressed. And after that, then we'll have a reaction from civil society. The civil society guys then will help us to act as discussants. And so, to start with, I've got, for my speakers tonight, we've got Briggs Bomba from Citizens Manifesto. We've got Paidamoyo Mzulu, Committee of the People's Charter, SPICI. Then we've got Ms. Douglas Monzora from the MDC Alliance, Ms. Linda Masara from MDCT Kupelet. Then we also have Tafadzwa Mngwadi, commonly known as Two-Boy, also from, who is a ZANU-PF representative. And then I also have Tony with me here, who is also from civil society. So basically this is the... That's right. Excuse me. I think I've introduced everyone whom I have here. Yeah. So we will, if there's anyone who comes, but in terms of what I have on the program and what I've been advised, that's what I've introduced. But if there's any other speaker who has been omitted, that will be addressed as we go on, and we will address that. Thank you. So today we've got 2 hashtags that are going to be running this. There's hashtag Zimbabwe Election 2018, then hashtag My Issue, My Vote. And if you see on the walls, they're there for those who are good at tweeting or who are good at social media. I think you can use that. So let's start. I would immediately start from my right. And I'll give the honors. I'll go from my right, and then from my right, I'll go to my left. So I'll give Madame Linda Masarira. And like I said, I'm giving you 7 minutes to state your case. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the facilitator. Good evening to everyone who has taken their time to attend this important dialogue on the manifestos, how they resonate with the people who are intending to vote in 2018. Firstly, it is important to highlight that 2018 elections are not happening under normal or ideal conditions, considering abject poverty and joblessness, non-compliance to the Constitution, controversy over electoral reforms, unclear conditions and positions as to who is who in the electoral arena, and hence no level of playing field, and above all the soft coup that entrenches the military and its fully acquired ranks in political affairs. As the MDCT, led by Dr. Thokozani Kupe, we successfully launched our manifesto, BEST, Building an Economy. Was it successful? Yes, it was.
Excuse me, we please avoid interjections. I'm chairing here. We are protected in the proceed.
Thank you very much. We successfully launched our manifesto BEST, which stands for Building an Economy to support Transformation, where we actually took time to go on the ground to gather information from the people in Zimbabwe on what are the real issues that they wanted to be articulated, and which issues they wanted to have politicians actually alluding to and correcting, and what is it that they really wanted from politicians to correct in our society. We realize that we've been suffering from a lot of oppression since 1980. Zimbabweans are traumatized, they are jobless, they are hopeless, cashless and helpless. And we decided to actually go on the ground to ensure that we would speak to the issues that are affecting the people of Zimbabwe, that resonates with the people of Zimbabwe. And in our manifesto is our guide for priorities in the next 5 years. Not just for marketing for elections, but giving in a clear picture of a Zimbabwe we're looking forward to, that is marked in the context of sustainable development. Our manifesto cannot be a people's wish list, but would rather meet the needs of Zimbabwean people as they look forward to a future that is bright and clear in the political, economic, and social spheres. Without any fear of manipulation, we are cognizant of limited resources due to ZANU-PF mismanagement of the economy and corruption due to patronage politics that has been in existence in Zimbabwe dating from 1980 up to date. Hence, we only prioritize the basics, important and the immediate, that could and can be done within the next 5 years. We actually speak to jobs and best, but we cannot only talk of jobs without talking of reindustrialization, without talking our diamonds in India, or having our minerals being processed outside Zimbabwe. Yet all those things can be done right here in Zimbabwe. On youth education and skills development, youth employment, gender equality, equity, we think that it is important to highlight our core values, which include non-discrimination, equality, and fairness. These are equally applicable to youth and women in as much as they are to all groups. These have become part of our core values and realization that in both politics and national development, these groups have remained marginalized, so much so that their potential has remained unnoticed. Hence, we want their contribution and potential to be fully used for national development so as to achieve sustainable development in all spheres of human development. Most importantly, youths and women, including people with disability, have been specifically targeted in capital support for business, in youth empowerment and gender parity in sections of our manifesto. Above all, by premising our manifesto on building an economy to support transformation of livelihoods, we have underpinned job creation as a fundamental requirement for the people of Zimbabwe, since the current situation has made youths and the educated people into believing that being formally employed has become taboo in Zimbabwe. Actually, job creation is a cross-cutting theme of the manifesto, hence that caters for the youth, women, and people with disability who have been historically marginalized and excluded from national development and decision-making processes in this country. On natural resource governance, we have something under the local governance, but also on our agriculture and food security and environment, as well as mining. Resources are infinite and must be used responsibly for future generations and the posterity of Zimbabwe, as well as preserving the environment. Though ZANU-PF rule has devastated the environment with no compensation for the people of Zimbabwe, for the locals in their different localities, for example, Marange Diamond Fields, and the ISO that has developed in the Kitsiatota area in Marsh Central. Only to mention a few, but definitely benefiting from the fishes in ZANU-PF who obviously cannot fry themselves. In land tenure, we believe that a land audit is due in Zimbabwe. The land audit was not representative of all the people in Zimbabwe. It was only aligned to a certain political grouping, not the people of Zimbabwe. And we believe that any land management, including redistribution, should be premised on poverty reduction, food security, and ability to fully utilize the land rather than patronage and clientelism. Without a common regime on land tenure that guarantees security, it is very unlikely that farmers would invest meaningfully on land. What is equally important for us is wildlife resource ownership and tourism, which has been monopolized by a few without much return on job creation and local beneficiation. Lastly, for youths or tertiary students, our manifesto speaks of loan and grant facilities. With the current state of our economy in Zimbabwe, we cannot talk of free higher education, but loan and grant facilities to ensure that every Zimbabwean child has got access to quality education. On health, we are speaking to the availability of quality and efficient healthcare, availability of medication in all institutions that are run by the government of Zimbabwe, as well as a provision for free sanitary ware for vulnerable groups, which could be the youths, students, and people with disability. And one of the things that we critically highlighted in our manifesto is rural development. We have had growth points which have never grown in Zimbabwe, and it is critically important for us to ensure that
the tenure of the next government, whatever form it shall be 5 years. So, may I, of course, start by responding to some of the issues that have been raised by my colleague from the MDCTK, as it has been pronounced by the moderator, because it seems it is continuously getting synonyms one after the other. It will sound to me as if they crafted their manifesto around ZANU-PF, because the key word in a presentation has been ZANU-PF. I don't know whether it is the best manifesto or it is completely the opposite, which amounts to the worst manifesto. But perhaps I would not want to be the judge. Let the people judge, because the elections are certainly coming. So that's one thing that is very certain, and I'm sure that those that craft, manifestos and agendas for the next 5 years around certain political parties, and not essentially the people, they shall be completely and essentially be punished by the people. Okay, may I say that at the pillar of the Zimbabwe African National Union Patriotic Front manifesto is the agenda that Zimbabwe is open for business. It is not only open for business, it is also safe for business. Why am I saying this? You'll be quite very much aware that for the past 2 decades, or to be very specific, for the past 18 years, our country has not been running to the best that we have wanted it to be. Our country has been operating on a non-functional economy. Why has that been so? It's because our country has been locked up and we've been living in isolation. So what do we need to do? Let's open our country to business. What do we mean when we say Zimbabwe is open for business? You'll quite be very much join me to appreciate that on his inauguration, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, your President and my President, but perhaps to be more specific, the presidential candidate of the Zimbabwe African National Union Patriotic Front, enunciated this agenda that Zimbabwe is open for business with a lot of things in mind. That is why the fact that Zimbabwe is open for business is the key driving agenda of the ZANU-PF manifesto, from which all other issues depend on. Okay. Why am I saying so? There is no country that can operate, particularly in Africa, without foreign direct investment. The reason why our country has been what it has been, you best describe it the best that you can. I would not waste my time to do that. But the reason why it has been what it has been, it is because we have not been able to create adequate and conducive environment to lure foreign direct investment. It is from foreign direct investment that we'll be able to create jobs for our people. And the pillar of the ZANU-PF manifesto is re-engagement. Why do we want to engage? It is because we know very well that the only way we'll be able to sustainably, economically, and socially develop this country is when we are open. May I take this opportunity, colleagues, to say, without foreign direct investment, any promise for jobs is a fallacy. Without a manifesto that speaks to openness, any promise for development is a pipe dream. Comrades and friends, I'm talking about radical re-engagement exercise to make sure that our country is brought back into the family of nations, and that we will be able to be spoken about reputably as a nation that is enough natural resources to market, that prides itself in the most important asset for development, which is human capital. There is no one among us who can doubt that we've got the best literacy race in Africa. And beyond the literacy race, we have the best human capital. Amongst the people that are gathered here are some of my former classmates. I see among them graduates and unemployed graduates among them. Okay? But the reason why even Robert Mugabe's administration promised the 2.2 million jobs and could not deliver, it was because we didn't understand the economics of re-engagement with the international community in order to make sure that we will then be able to lure foreign direct investment. With foreign direct investment, we are then able to resuscitate our industries, to bring life to industries that have been made into mortuaries by the previous gangsters that I have talked about. May I also say, colleagues, that with openness for business, we are then able to open investment in our education sector. It is completely frivolous and malicious to promise a loan and grant system in the education sector, that one that is not backed with investment. How are you going to do it? Are you saying that our education sector is going to be resuscitated miraculously? We can never dream of creating jobs for our people, our unemployed graduates, our young people, as long as we cannot do adequately enough in order to make sure that we restore production in our industries. May I also go further and say that in our manifesto, we have been very clear. We have promised 1.5 billion houses. Now, after that promise, you had a lot of people throwing spanners to that. May I ask you, is it wrong to dream? We dream of the kind of a nation that we want to be. We dream of the kind of a society that we wish to be in the next 5 years. And the only way we can do it is when we give ourselves an agenda that is very clear, and we are very clear about 1.5 million houses for our people. Now somebody was saying, are you going to create 800,000, houses? Are we going to erect 800,000 houses over a year? May I say this to you? When we're talking about 1.5 million houses, how many provinces do we have? We have got 10 provinces in this country. And each province probably has more than 20 residential settlements. The importance of infrastructure is to ensure, of course, that the ease of doing business and doing business itself becomes more and more practical than a pipe dream. Finally, I'm quite very much happy that the only way we are going to achieve economic development in this country is when we unite as a people, and our manifesto speaks to that. Uniting against what? Uniting against corruption. Uniting against what? Uniting against tribalism. Uniting against what? Uniting against sexism that see ourselves treating women like objects. Uniting against violence, because only through a free and fair, non-violent election that is credible are we going to achieve our dream. I'm quite very much happy to be associated with my president and our presidential candidate, Comrade Emerson Mnangagwa, simply because particularly he's the only political leader who has outspokenly made it unequivocal and categorical that we must have a non-violent election. Even when he's saying so, there are those that have a penchant of engaging in violence, and their easiest victim have been women. Yes. May you help me condemn that?
The MDC-T has not yet launched its manifesto. The reason for that is that the MDC-T as a party has a manifesto. But as you know, we are in alliance negotiations and discussions, and we will issue a manifesto for the alliance, which is a hybrid document encapsulating the views of other members in the alliance. We are an alliance of 7 political parties, and we are bound by, the MDC is bound by the ideology, the social democratic ideology, and the key values are freedom, justice, equality, and fairness. We want to take over governmental power through peaceful, democratic, and constitutional means. In other words, we want to take over power and govern our people differently from the way they are being governed now and change their lives for the better. The MDC manifesto, which has not been, the MDC Alliance manifesto, which has not been launched, is predicated upon 3. Is prosperity. The problem with the Zimbabwean state, I'm going on transformation. The problem with the Zimbabwean state is the problem of conflation. Conflation of the party, the government, and the military. The person you see in the Politburo is the person you see in the army, is the person you see in cabinet, is the person you see in Mafuta. We want to debunk the state. And the state, apart from the problem of conflation, and I know that it is a big problem even from the discussions that I've had with very good colleagues of mine from ZANU-PF, the issue of the involvement of the military even at party level. We want to debunk that. We want to remove clientelism and paternalism of the state. We want to remove that situation where state benefits are given to people because they support a particular political party. I want to assure my colleagues here who are from other political parties that when MDC is in power, they will get their share of maize, they will get their fair share of fertilizer, whether they criticize us or not. So we want to bring social justice. We want to embark on nation building. We have never had nation building in Zimbabwe. We want to have a national vision. We have never had a national vision in Zimbabwe. And the vision that we have for Zimbabwe is that of an economic and commercial hub of the whole African continent. We want to deal with national healing. There is a lot of unhappiness in the country. There was a declared civil war in 1980, in the early 80s, Gukurahundi. And then we had an undeclared civil war where we did terrible things to each other in 2008. We want to heal our people. There is nothing special about being MDCT. There is nothing special about being ZANU-PF. There is nothing special about being Donga. But there is everything special about being Zimbabwean. We want to bring back our Zimbabweanness. We need to build a competent bureaucracy. We need a right-sized government. We need to get rid of corruption. We need free and fair elections. Free and fair elections are elections that guarantee the secrecy of the vote, the security of the vote, and the security of the voter. We want devolution. Devolution is the answer to uneven development. We noticed that in certain instances, development follows the president. For example, in the current setup, 8 ministers in this cabinet come from the president's province. Even when we went to BVR, the distribution of the BVR kits, 490 kits were put in Midlands, and followed by, which was the highest number, followed by 430 kits in Mashonaland East, which was the second, then followed by 390 kits in Matabeleland South. And guess what? 490 kids where the president comes from. 430 kids where the vice president comes from. 390 kids where the other vice president comes from. And the rest, lower figures, where the presidium doesn't come from. We want to get rid of that. We want to restore the sovereignty of the citizen. The citizen should be the master and not the other way around. The politicians must play subordinate role to these masters who are the citizens. We want to build strong institutions. We want to have a specific value system. When we are debating here, we must debate and we must contradict each other in love and in harmony. We want to bring constitutionalism as well as rule of law. Opportunities. We want to build $1 billion economy. And how are we going to build $1 billion economy, Comrade Mugwani? Not through foreign direct investment only. There are 4 sources of finance. There is foreign direct investment, you are right. There is also direct savings. There is also overseas development assistance, as well as public-private partnerships. All these are the sources of finance that will finance the erection of a $100 billion economy. We want inclusive growth. Everybody must be included. We want financial sector reform, cash shortages. We want industrialization. We want mining and so on. Now, there is a myth which was spread by the government of President Robert Mugabe, which was a ZANU-PF government. The economy is land, and land is the economy. That is false. The economy is not land, and land is not the economy. For had the economy been land, and land the economy, Japan, which is far much smaller than Zimbabwe, would not be richer than Zimbabwe because Zimbabwe has got more land. How come Zimbabwe is poorer than Belgium, which is the size of Matabeleland? So the economy is not land, and land is not the economy. We need to go into manufacturing. We need equal access to wealth. We need equality. We are developing a model to justify the $100 billion economy. Lastly, prosperity. We want to get rid of poverty and misery. We want education, free primary education, and loan and grants and scholarship for tertiary students. We want to deal with the environment. We are holding this land, this environment in trust to future generations. We want to deal with vulnerable groups. We need social justice, and we need rural development. Lastly, we are going to have our program predicated on 5 pillars: governance, nation building, the economy, service delivery, social justice, and infrastructure. 1.5 million houses. What I am imploring the government of the day, which is ZANU-PF, is to be realistic. We don't want kuudzwa kunzi takaona nzopa musoro pemba. First, if you say 1.5 million houses, it translates into 300,000 houses a year, which translates into approximately 30,000 houses a month, which translates into $450 million on housing every month. This government, this economy cannot sustain that. And therefore, we find, with due respect, the ZANU-PF a manifesto content-free, and it is not realistic.
The colleague from Suicide, I was on my right, so I'm going to go on my left, and I'm going to invite Mr. Paidamoyo Mzulu from the CPC, which is the Committee of the People's Charter.
Good evening, comrades. I'm from the CPC, and we are going to interrogate the issues which have been raised by the political parties in relation to what our people specifically want. I would hazard to say, firstly, when I listen to the 3 comrades representing political parties present here, they are all speaking from the same hymn book. That is the same hymn book of neoliberalism. I'm going to demonstrate how they're speaking to neoliberalism. We have, for instance, on the issue of tertiary education, all the 3 political parties are speaking to the issues of loans and grants. And in this scenario, we are simply saying the poor would not have access to tertiary education. We know what it requires to have access to a loan. And this matter has not been dealt, and you have noticed what these people are saying. And then go to their economic models. Their economic models are based on the euphemisms from IMF, the ease of doing business. Anyone who has a computer or a digital held equipment can simply check what does ease of doing business mean. And I'll demonstrate this by going back to the famous Zua judgment. We have not had it being criticized by any of the political parties because they believe and they pray on the altar of capital. The biggest mistake which we are going to notice is, unlike the generation of my parents, who had the security of their employment, no one today is assured of that. You can be summarily dismissed by 3 months' notice, whether you've served for 5 years, whether you've served for 2 years, whether you've served for 1 week. You can be told we no longer need you here. And there's one more important point on the labor issue. We have had the enactment of the Special Economic Zones Act. I don't know how many of us have taken care to read that document. That document speaks to the Labor Act would not, I underline, would not be applicable to special economic zones. And we are very certain, and we know, for instance, ZANU-PF speaks to issues of following on the Chinese model. We know the Chinese sweatshops. For a fact, we know ZANU-PF speaks to the issues of the Rwandan model, and we know what the Rwandan model is. The Rwandan model is about developing the economy based on capitalist tendencies where the state has a strong hand and there are no rights. Let's go back to what the people of Zimbabwe say and what the people of Zimbabwe want. We know that the people of Zimbabwe have always said they want devolution, and it's important that people should speak to what is it that we mean by devolution. We know that the people of Zimbabwe are tired of privatization. And if you read through the manifestos or what is said by the principals within the political parties, they all speak to free market economies. I think most of you, if you do justice to yourselves, you would read what free market economies means. We are not in such a scenario and we cannot afford it. I have traveled a little bit and I'll speak to what I've noticed in other countries. In the United States today, in the United Kingdom today, in Germany today, in Japan today, and these are big economies, they have protection of their workers. They have what they call the minimum wage. They have what they say, how much should you earn if you work an hour? They have safety valve nets. Those who cannot get employed, what do they get? And we are going for the radical, faceless capitalism, where the poor would not have a choice. Fundamentally, we are going into one of the myths which has been built and propagated by the media and the political parties about the GNU. The myth about a growing economy. Yes, it's true. The economy was growing, but it was not inclusive and it was not representative of what happens in our homes. If the economy grew by 10% in 2009, how much did it grow in the pockets of the workers? How much did it grow in the pockets, in the lives of our people who live in the rural areas? So we still have issues which we have to deal with. The issues to do with devolution, the issues to deal with respect of people, the issues to deal with accessible education, the issues to deal with accessible health systems. We cannot at this stage wallow and celebrate privatization and the worship of capital. The moderator tells me that my time is up, but I'll be more willing to engage on those issues when the turn comes from the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Mzulu, for the critique. I have that. Okay. Can I just have it here, and then I'll just go and I'll ask Tony to present, and then it will go to Briggs, who will actually give us the closing critique, and after that, then we open to the floor.
Okay, can I go? I'm not sure, can I ask a question of the audience? Is that okay?
State your case.
Yeah. Are any of you familiar with the Alfred Marshall Lectureship? Are you familiar with the term neo-patrimonial kleptocracy? Okay. Zimbabwe has suffered a neo-patrimonial kleptocracy. Comrade on my left explained it. Mugabe had his own little clique, and this is referred to in papers, in economic papers, as a neo-patrimonial kleptocracy. The inner circle implements highly inefficient economic policies. They steal, they expropriate the wealth of the citizens and use the proceeds for their own glorification or consumption. Okay, that's what we've been going through. And are we going to go through it, and can you do anything about it, is what I'm going to be talking about. The right to rule in a neo-patrimonial kleptocracy is ascribed to a person rather than to an office. I know we've changed our regime and it's a new regime, but it's still ascribed to a person rather than an office, despite the official existence of a written constitution. The state is controlled and run for the benefit of the individual and a small group. All of these people have been alluding to that, who use their power to transfer the fraction of their society's resources to themselves. The president dominates the state apparatus and stands above its laws. It's not just Zimbabwe, these are neo-patrimonial kleptocracies. There are many of them around the world. Relationships of loyalty and dependence pervade a formal political and administrative systems, and the officials occupy the bureaucratic positions not to perform the public service, but for their own personal wealth and status. They do not do it for the benefit of the country. Indicators of neo-patrimonial kleptocracy, I just ask you, is this still applied? Typically, total control of the money by the Reserve Bank and can be kept short because then the government can allocate or withhold valuable rations of foreign exchange and cash in order to expropriate wealth. Why are we paying black market rates for foreign currency? And guarantee support. Favor and reward. So if you support the government, you get it. If you oppose the government, you don't. Political gatekeeping. Gatekeepers are individuals or institutions typically found in the rural areas where you have a system where they are dependent on the political gatekeeping for their status. Whether they get land or whether they get any resources is dependent on their link to the president in the inner circle. An obsequious supergrass in a position of high authority is filling a role of informer and betrayer. He betrays, he sells out, he brings in, says, you are a sellout, therefore you get nothing because you are not supporting. Is this still happening? Does this still apply? Question was asked me, why buy the chiefs new vehicles when there aren't even enough ambulances in rural areas? Is this not political gatekeeping? Politicians, you do not, a neo-patrimonial kleptocracy cannot exist without the tolerance of society. The regime emerged and survived in Zimbabwe's weakly institutional polities because we did not place restrictions on them. Strong society, citizens punish politicians by voting them out of power. Neo-patrimonial kleptocracy, politicians punish citizens who fail to support them. Politicians vie for the support and endorsement of interest groups. Politicians create interest groups. Citizens demand rights. Citizens beg for favors. We've been going through the right-hand side of this column. That's it. Thank you very much.
In 1963, 32 independent African countries met in Addis Ababa, and they met on the 24th of May, not the 25th. and there were some very fundamental things that informed that conversation. So part of what I want to offer to speakers who have gone before me is that some of the things that we are dealing with as a country, some of them are general to the whole continent.
True.
So we need to relax a little bit and maybe not ascribe everything that we are experiencing in this country to each other. And so there's a general level, and there's the second aspect which is particular to our situation as Zimbabwe. And my second offering is to say it's important for us to have a good analysis of the crisis, the nature and character of the crisis that we are dealing with and how we got here. And I think that's one of the areas that is still a little bit deficient in the manifestos that we have. We have manifestos that are quite keen to prescribe the answers and the solutions to the problems that bedevil us. I will not take too much time, but I'd like to offer that if you go to the general level of the crisis in Zimbabwe, and it's a crisis you see across the continent, there's a very prophetic book called Pitfalls of National Consciousness, and this is a book by Frantz Fanon. And if you go into it, you will see Zimbabwe explained to you. You had a generation that prosecuted the national liberation struggle, informed by ideas of nationalism. And the ideas of nationalism were correct for that particular historical epoch because they were ideas that looked to addressing the questions of racial segregation in this country, that looked to addressing the question of the marginalization of black people, and they did it successfully in 1980. But the nationalist ideological framework did not invest enough in looking at then what does transformation look like and detailing it. So there was an ideological deficiency, if you want to put it that way, in the nationalist ideology that informed the very heroic struggle that gave us national liberation in 1980. So you get to 1980, you have two problems. And this, you can summarize these two problems as poverty. It was poverty in the form of ideas to start with, because we now had ideas that were adequate for a particular historical epoch, that had its themes, that had its priorities, but we're taking them into the next historical era, which now had new themes and new priorities. So that's one issue. But secondly, every transformation that happens in any society is anchored in a particular class or in the agency of a particular formation. If you go to Rwanda, they were very honest in saying, look, the transformation we seek as Rwanda as a country, it's going to be anchored in private business. So we're going to do everything that we can to orient our economies, our policies, and everything to create that enabling environment for this business. So in 1980, you had a problem of an anchor class, in the sense that the people who come in to inherit the state were actually your teachers, your gardeners, your, it was a people who did not really have a real relationship with the economy that we're inheriting. And the state had been designed to be run by a wealthy class. So you had a problem of a mismatch between this anchor class that came in. You can ask Anaibo Mandaza, when they came in 1980, all they had was a satchel and a red beret and maybe one or two, three books in there. So you have a very poor class inheriting a state that had been designed for a very wealthy class and also designed to be exclusively serving the white community. So in such a situation, the corruption becomes inevitable. So we had that corruption that comes in, and it's not just typical to Zimbabwe, it's across the continent. But fast forward to where we are now, it takes us to a very acute political, economic, and social crisis. And I wish we had time to, when we say we have a political, economic, and social crisis, what do we mean? I'm going to leave the other two and just focus on the social. Because if you look at that as the most defining character of our crisis right now, it's what you see when you go on our streets now. Our young people who represent the future hanging at the back of those combis, and those, they are fast, they are going as fast as they can. Or our young people sitting on those street corners, Chiroam Sombodia and all of these things, and they're just stoned. They don't even have the confidence to dream, to be hopeful, to be courageous, to have even the self-esteem that you need to transform this country. So we need to also be honest with ourselves that for us to transform as a country, we're going to have to address that. We're not just going to have to come up with policies and stuff. We're going to have to inspire confidence and this ability to hope again and to believe again and to dream in our people, especially in the young people. There's no one who has a vision for the future that you will see hanging at the back of that combi and it's racing as fast as it can and people are falling and some of them are dying. So when we say we have a social crisis, we mean that the very fabric of our society is started to come apart. And social crisis is actually the deepest level of crisis. I'm being told to emphasize the points as I go along, but it's code language. It says 2 minutes. So let me fast track. So it really takes us. I want to speak to just a few things that come across in the Citizens Manifesto, which is this document that you see here. It speaks to the need for us as Zimbabweans not just to raise problems, but to wear a new jacket where we are solutionist, we are solution-oriented. So it's no longer about being communist, socialist, but we are solutionist, we are solution-oriented. And the very top first cardinal pillar of this is servant leadership. We've had this leadership question wrong all along. In the sense that if you are a leader in this country, even in our burial society, in your community, you eat first. Whereas the instinct to serve people is what must be informing you showing up for leadership. You should be the one eating last. So we need to get this leadership question right. And then the second piece is what we've called citizen participation or active citizenship. The transformation that we seek as a country, even as a continent, has to be anchored in the self-activity of citizens. It's not going to roll in on the wheels of inevitability or on the benevolence of a good leader. It's going to be citizens. And when it says active citizen and citizen participation, it doesn't mean showing up to vote once every 5 years and going to register to vote. It means everyone, it means every day, and it means everything that matters in your society. Let's see citizens defending people who are chopping down trees in their communities, defending people who want to grab land that's reserved for a school, and it's an everyday kind of activity. I'm just going to wrap up. Some of the things that we talk about, things like gender justice, it's already been alluded to. Labor justice, it's already been alluded to. Responsible management and governance of our natural resources and environment. And this is a big thing, not just for Zimbabwe, but for the whole continent. In every year, as we engage in economic activity as a continent, there is a net outflow of resources from Africa to the rest of the world. If we don't get that thing right, so that if we trade in diamonds, there's net benefit to Zimbabwe, net benefit to Africa, not Belgium, not London, not the US, we are never going to get out. We'll keep pointing fingers at each other and there's someone smiling in London, in New York, and all of this. So we need to be very clear that our investment has to focus on a responsible governance and management of our natural resources. Comrade Chair, I will say some other things as we get into conversation. Let me leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take 4 questions from my right. 4 questions. And when I say questions, I don't mean presentations. The presentations, if you want presentations, we have those at last. I want questions. If you're going to try and give me a lecture and to give like a lecture, you only have 1 minute to speak as a speaker, and I've got my stopwatch here. So 1 minute, say your question, and I want hands from this side. This side, I'll come for you. 4 questions from this side, they answer, then we move to the next side, and then we alternate. Yes. I recognize you. Who else? I also recognize you in a cap. And yes, in a jacket, and you, I think he was first. I'll take you in the next round. Those 4 speakers. In the order that I've pointed at you, you may state your case before that.
Okay, to Ms. Masara, you stated that you successfully launched your manifesto. But if I'm not mistaken, we're told at least 22 people showed up and you cancelled. So could you please clarify on what you mean when you say you successfully launched your manifesto? Thank you. Ms. Monzo, with all due respect, you said the issue with ZANU-PF is like the military, the state, and what I want. So you said that you find a soldier in the Politburo and in the military, etc. So I'm also asking, like, could you please give me an example for one soldier, a serving soldier who is in the army, who is in the Politburo, and who is in the government? That's my first question to you. The second question to you, just before I sit down, you say that it's not practical to use 4.5 million in a month to build houses. You said that's not very practical, and that's that's not practical, and that's impossible. So I wanted to ask that: is it then practical to have a 70 billion bullet train in this economy, and when we can't put 4.5 million to houses? Is it then practical? Is that practical?
My question is directed at Mr. Monzura and Mr. Mugwadi. Specifically, it's centered on the legitimacy of the government that is going to run these elections. We've had a coup or a no coup, situation prevailing in the country. So what I want to know is, if a government is considered illegitimate, can it really run elections that will produce a legitimate government? It's like what happened during the Smith regime. Smith came together with Muzorewa and company, and they had Zimbabwe Rhodesia. They had elections won by Muzorewa, but the world refused to recognize that.
Kuti economy improve ne parallel market pekuti pataifungidzira kutopira mu dispensation zvinhu zvakaita sekutengeswa kwemari kukwira kuita fuel every day tingagonere kuzobuda after taita ma-elections waya nezvatiri kupromiswa zvinenge zvakunyepa.
Is there any guarantee that you can give your other colleagues from MDC that their safety is guaranteed with regards to the idea of violence that has been prevailing? Because when you're talking about your manifesto, you talked about the idea of love, peace, and harmony. Are you justified, or are you that serious enough to write that in your manifesto when you've seen the violent culture that the MDC teacher is now been doing?
May I start by sharing you an experience I had with Joshua Nkomo. In 1988, Joshua Nkomo came to the University of Zimbabwe, and we harangued him about ZAPU joining ZANU in order to form ZANU. And Joshua Nkomo said, the problem with you young people is that you think you know more than us, your parents, including how to make children. You think you know that better than us. It was profound. But anyway, let me go to, I will not answer in a particular order, but I'll answer all the questions if you don't mind. Let me start with the easier ones. Legitimacy of the present government. The present government is a product of what is called a coup. The military takeover, some people call it, referring to what happened in November. But what happened in November had all the characteristics of a coup. A coup is where a head of state is divested of his power by a military. A coup is where the military deploys and restricts the rights of citizens and ultimately change a government. This is exactly what happened in November 2017. Now, some people call it romantic names, military takeover, and so on. Well, if it quacks like a duck, flies like a duck, swims like a duck, lays eggs like a duck, and flies like a duck, then it is a duck. So this was a coup. And therefore, the legitimacy of this regime is clearly not there. The coup, the military deployed into the streets were not deployed by the president of the day, who was Robert Mugabe then. Therefore, this party, this government does not have legitimacy because it is a product of a coup. Now, we do not really, right now we are going towards the end of this government. This is the government which has done everything wrong. They've misinterpreted the constitution. They've misappointed people. At one point in time, more than 5 ministers outside parliament were appointed. And in terms of the law, that is not allowed. Number 2, you cannot appoint a minister of defense who has other responsibilities. General Chiwenga is the vice president of the country as well as the minister of defense. It is not allowed in terms of our constitution. And in terms of our constitution, the president cannot usurp the functions of the prosecutor general. Yesterday, he just did that. So this is the government that has done everything wrong. The economy has gone for the worst. Everything has gone bad. The cash crisis has gone bad. And we are happy that we are going to see the back of this government. We will get rid of it in a very smooth manner, in a very non-aggressive manner, and the people who belong to that party still have a future in this country. And their future is more secure under us than through continuation. I find no better words to describe the abhorrence that we feel with the treatment of our colleagues by some of the hooligans under our name. And for that reason, we condemn it and we do not accept it at all. We do not accept the treatment that Dr. Kupe suffered as she left the Constitutional Court. That is the work of hooligans, that is the work of criminals, and they must be brought to book. We do not accept the treatment that she suffered in Bulawayo, where she was attacked by those hooligans. But the problem is the government. The government is not proceeding to arrest these criminals. Those perpetrators have not been brought to book. They were perpetrators of violence who tried to burn people, including myself, in Buhera. They have not been brought to justice. They have not been brought to justice by this government. So this government is perpetuating violence by seeing no evil, hearing no evil, and speaking no evil. It is the responsibility of law enforcement to make sure that criminals are brought to book. And this is not the first time that they are not bringing criminals to book. In 2008, 300 people from the MDC were murdered in cold blood by ZANU-PF militia. And there's documentation to that effect. Up to now, no single person has been prosecuted. This is a state that condones violence, and we are going to get rid of the criminals. Now, when we talk of, there's something that, yes, thank you. Soldiers, the conflation, the question of conflation. When we talk of conflation, we mean that there is a mix-up of institutions and a mix-up of responsibilities. And I just sincerely hope, my brother, that you have read the Defense Act. If you read the Defense Act, you then see the definition of soldier. You also see the definition of army. And the army includes the reserve army.